Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of ASN Dad Chat. I'm Andy and today I'm joined by Sam.
Hi there. Right, so we're launching this because, let's be honest, being a dad with a child with ASN can be a lonely shift. It often feels like we're navigating all of it without a map.
Exactly. Our main goal is to reach every single ASN dad in Scotland and beyond. We want to make sure that you know you're part of a community and that you're absolutely not doing this alone.
We've already got a brilliant group where we chat and meet up in person, but we want to take those conversations further. We're here to share our own experiences to help make it a bit easier for other dads out there.
We'll be sharing this, whether it's the wins, whether they're big or small, and the hard truths. But a quick heads up, we're not professionals, we're not doctors, lawyers or anything like that. We're just dads like you. Everything that you hear is our own opinion and it's just from lived experience. Again, not medical or legal advice.
So whether you're listening on your commute during the night shift or you just managed to find 5 minutes of peace, pull up a chair. This is real talk, real honesty in real life. This is the ASN Dad Chat.
Perfect. So yeah, hi everyone. It's very good to be here. Episode 1. Just me and Sam today. Unfortunately, Glenn couldn't make it.
Yes, parenting, as you know, children get sick, and unfortunately, when you have children, that there is no time frame on when that happens.
Yeah, anything can happen. Always at the worst time.
We wish them well and hope that they make a steady recovery.
We do. Today we're recording at the studio of Paisley Radio. A big thanks to Paul for letting us use the studio today.
Yes, it's very kind, and it's a beautiful studio. You know, it's really up to date. He's done a fantastic job showing us what to do, making us feel welcome, and we hope that we have this as something that we do for a while.
Yeah, happy for him to host a couple of amateurs in this and such a good setup. So I guess the kind of big question is, why have we actually wanted to do this podcast? What is the need for a couple of dads in Scotland to talk about ASN? I mean, from my perspective, it's mainly I've always found podcasts really helpful in learning all about the kind of ASN community and different facts and different pieces of research when it comes specifically to my own son. But I've always found that there isn't anything that's specific to Scotland, and you'll find even if you were just to go down south of the border, the systems are completely different. I've found that it's really struggled. It's a big struggle to personally relate to that sort of stuff, especially as someone that does find it a lot better to learn from other dads compared to when you're learning from medical professionals. I don't know how you feel with that, Sam.
I totally agree. I think you look across the world, Scotland does it different to England, they do it different to America. Everybody handles, ASN and, there's so different everywhere. And I know that when we've discussed this prior, we're obviously wanting to do this podcast. It's been something that we've talked about, that if at the end of the podcast, if we can help one more dad out there, we've succeeded in what we're doing, and we're hoping that we can bring like-minded experiences from all different dads with children with ASN. We can bring that to light, and if there's anybody out there that's listening now that does want to be a part of this, certainly look us up. We're on was it Instagram, Facebook? We've got a tech whiz that's doing that at the moment.
That'll be it's a work in progress.
That's a work in progress.
We share everything on our various social media pages so that everyone can get involved and you know where to find us. I think the big thing for me is that, going for a personal experience, that you'll find that most dads don't really tend to talk about their feelings, which is massive when it comes to you're getting even the kind of diagnosis or anything, or just having the day-to-day life that it comes with having an ASN kid, a kid with additional support needs, whether that's physical, mental, or a plethora of what that could be. I've always found that it's a lot easier to talk to other dads that are going through that same journey. You can have the best friends in the world, but unless they're going through the same sort of life that you're going through, it's just impossible to relate.
I totally agree. Your best friends in your life, a lot of the time they can be your rock, and they can be everything you need, but definitely they do their best. But until you step into a life like this, with similar experiences, it can be hard, because I think certainly when I joined, and I spoke to a lot of dads who are similar to myself, you know, you did get a real feeling of, right, you guys really get this, and you know, you really understand. Like I've got 3 beautiful children at home. I've got a wonderful partner, and you know, I love my children so much. You know, they're all so different. I've got a non-verbal stepson. I've got a very verbal stepdaughter, and our youngest, he's just starting the pathway. So all 3 are at really different stages, and I'm learning new stuff from them all the time. And that's one thing that we certainly looked at, is sharing these experiences, and anybody who's going through the same plethora of ASN, you know, if we can share anything that helps, that's something good for us.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, most of the kind of advice and things that I've found a lot more beneficial just looking up different podcasts or people that have actually went through it, talking to people that are going through the same sort of thing, as opposed to just kind of reading the kind of different medical documents, and it tells you more about what your kid can't do half the time, as opposed to here's how to help them thrive, how to deal with it. We've went through the same sort of thing. I think it's a lot easier just to speak and making it a lot more normal than you think it is when you're just kind of looking up these different documents yourself. If it's something that you can just talk about over the phone, through WhatsApp, even when you're at the pub, anything at all, it just makes things a lot easier to go through. I guess a bit about me. So I'm Andy. I've got a wife, Cheryl, and we've got a son, Ashton, who will be 7 later on this month, and he is autistic. He is going through the process of an ADHD diagnosis, and he also has something called Fragile X syndrome.
Well, like you were saying, I'm Sam. I have 3 beautiful children. Our oldest, my stepson, he is 9. I met him when he was 4. That was not long after he had his diagnosis of autism. Since then, he has had pica, which, if not many people know, pica it's almost like an under sensitivity of the mouth. So he chews a lot of items that are not edible. Our boy, he's 9. Our stepdaughter, she's 6. She's just turned 6. She's got her autism assessment very soon. And our youngest, my son, he's 3, and he is just starting he's got developmental delay. He had numerous surgeries from birth around about his throat area. So we kind of gave him a little bit of leeway when it came to that with his speech, etc., etc. But definitely from education standpoint, we're definitely seeing that he has a little bit of delay. And he is getting that support, which is obviously great. And it probably will be a case of he will get a diagnosis in hopefully the near future. We will see.
Yeah, definitely. I think it obviously highlights as well. So with Ashton, he got his autism diagnosis when he was 3 years old. So I think it just shows the difference in terms of area to area, in terms of the diagnosis process. I mean, we went through a couple of different stages. It was when Ashton was 2 that we started to kind of see some differences with him. I mean, prior to that, he started to walk relatively quickly. He was able to talk, and he was hitting all his milestones as expected, even ahead of time if you were to look at it that way. But after that, there was kind of regression after that, and I would say that definitely myself, I was in more of denial, thinking that no, it's not this. Yeah, and that's that way. So I've got 3 amazing nieces as well. They're all autistic as well, one of which is the year above Ashton. And at that point, I mean, even now, the 4 of them couldn't be any different from each other. 4 completely different people. Do
you feel like, sorry to interrupt you, do you feel like the fact that you had nieces who were born, was it one niece born before
One
Ashton?
niece before Ashton that was autistic.
Do you feel like that prepared you just a little bit, just gave you a little bit of an eye?
I'd say it was kind of the opposite, because with Ashton developing and talking and everything, and my oldest niece rather, was non-verbal, and Ashton was almost the kind of complete opposite. He was able to talk, he was very engaging, he was walking, he was talking. So I think if anything, that made me think, no, this is definitely not autism.
Okay.
And I think it was more my wife that was coming around to it more than me. I was more, it's definitely not this, definitely not. And I remember at one point we had a big list of about 10 to 15 different of the rarest physical disorders that could be explaining all these different things. And it wasn't until we ended up speaking to a kind of community nurse about it, and they said, everything you're saying sounds like autism. And then from there, the kind of penny dropped. And I think from what they said, just in these kind of various conversations, it's always stuck with me in terms of just how different they can be. And it's that way of the saying is like, if you've met one person with autism, then you've met one person with autism, because they're all completely different. You couldn't compare them all to say, or you can clearly see they're all autistic together, because they're just so insanely different. So
you can't categorise them based on just what they have, what additional support need they have.
Definitely.
I think every child is different. We exchange stories all the time. We exchange stories with dads in our group, and every child, there's a plethora of different ages involved, but every child has, unique things about them, and being able to share that, obviously, in Paisley Radio is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I think that's where we've always said we have things like we've got WhatsApp chats, we have kind of meetups where we go and do different things, different activities, and I think that's a good thing. So there is around, must be nearing 50 dads in the group now. And
is it up to 50 now?
Yeah, nearly up to 50. So it is growing, and hopefully it does keep getting bigger and bigger.
How long's it been going now?
Maybe a year or something. Maybe not even that in terms of the kind of dads groups, but I think that's a good thing, because as we said, the kids are all so different, but the fact you've got so many different dads in there, you can put something in the chat without being worried about being embarrassed or anything like that. And there's usually, not every time, but there's usually someone else that's, if we went through that experience, here's how you dealt with it, or I'm going through something similar, can someone else help me with that? And it's like basically just having your own huge knowledge base that you can help with. And obviously you know yourself as well that we mentioned earlier that it can be quite a lonely place just being a dad, in terms of having
to change everything.
Yeah, having to change everything. And I think while we've got these chats that are there for advice about autism and things, and different kind of ASN conditions, there's also, we just have general chats and different days out and nights out, because sometimes it might be a case that you might just not want to come in and start talking about all these sort of things. You just want to talk 100%. To another dad who just gets how tired you are, how knackered you are, and you just want to be able to just chat away, which is again one of the great things, to be able to just meet with so many different dads out there.
Yeah, you gain so many different perspectives. I feel like also with the dads, there's a plethora of different ages as well. I'm coming up to 30, and I'm learning new things from younger dads, older dads, techniques that I haven't learned about before that I can use in our home. Like you said, being a dad can be a lonely place. I think when you go from I think in my personal experience, I went from 0 children to 2. When I met my partner, she had her stepson and stepdaughter. Our stepson was 4 when we met, and my stepdaughter was 1. So I've known them virtually their whole lives. And I didn't know anything when I stood in. I didn't look. I got to know my partner, and I got to know the story of these children, and got to know them better. So I went from 0 children to 2, and then I went away to university to study, and very much found out over a phone call that our youngest was due. And that
adds a lot of stress to it.
Everything
just having a newborn.
That was an absolute that was a shock to the system, that one. But hindsight is a wonderful thing. I look at it and go, there's nothing. These 3 children are, they're my life. They're everything. And we wouldn't change that. But I think sometimes, we do need help. And I think sometimes, like you were saying, dads can really struggle to talk about things. Certainly when I spoke with my partner recently, she was very, when her son started regressing, she really struggled with that, and she reached out to a group of children with additional support needs, and mums just all grouped together, and they were like, you can do this, have you thought about doing this, you should check this out. And I think that's wonderful, and I think I'm really glad that we've got that in our group.
Dads, yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of the time, you know, before that, you know, before my partner even mentioned about the ASN dads, you know, I think my initial thoughts were, okay, I'll certainly give this a shot.
Yep.
You know, but a lot of me was quite reserved in the sense that I was like, I'm consumed about being a dad. I'm not going to have the time to do this.
I'm not going to get it, sort of thing. It's just an extra thing.
And I'm very glad that I pushed myself out my comfort zone. You know, I have some I struggle with anxiety and depression myself, so stepping out of my comfort zone can be quite difficult, and I was glad that I done it, because, you know, when I've had situations come up that I've really struggled with, the first place I've put it in is the chat.
Yep.
And you don't get any judgment.
Exactly.
You know, you get
any time of day, there's always someone there.
Yeah, you get everybody, and everybody's doing their own thing. You know, there's some people that work, there's some people that don't. You know, there's some people that you know, their full-time job is looking after their child.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
And being able to take their child to all these different places and suggesting new places and all of these types of things is so important, and we do a really good job of it. You know.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's that weird. Obviously, I know that there is so many different things that get shared in the chat, and it is, again, highlighting that whole how different all these different kids are and how many different conditions there are. But at the same time, it just feels like you're connecting with someone that just really gets it. You don't feel that way of. It doesn't feel like a group of strangers. It just feels like, I'm going to put this in here. People are going to get it. They're not going to just say, they're going to tell you that sounds awful. They're not going to. With other friends, you can have the best friends in the world. They're not going to be the one that says to you, that sounds terrible. Like, that sounds like a really bad situation to be in. It sounds horrible, and even have a laugh about it sometimes, because it's a difficult subject to be involved in, and you don't really know how to deal with it unless you're in the same sort of situation. You are there to be able to be like, I've been through that. I understand that that's a total nightmare, and you know when to be able to make a joke. You know when to be able to literally just say, no, Sam, that is horrible. Like, you want someone to be able to say and agree with you, be like, yep, life is going crap right now. Like, if anything else, you want that honest conversation. You want it to be, you don't want someone to be like embarrassed to talk. You don't want anything different like that. It's just a great space to have.
Absolutely. So I certainly think, you know, that what we're doing is, you know, it's so important. We really want to make sure that we are reaching out to other people, and we are, you know, being as open and honest about what we can offer.
Yep.
You know, I know we have nights out that we plan. Mm-hmm. We have, you know, rest and relaxation. You know, it's so important that people understand that dads deserve these things. You know, I think something that I know I've certainly spoke about before is, you know, trying to find the balance between being yourself and being a parent.
Yeah.
You know, I imagine it as, you know, a scale. And sometimes, you know, during, you know, I'll have a week where, you know, the dad side is just so high up, and, you know, I've barely even thought about myself. You know, you almost go into survival mode. It's eat, sleep, repeat.
Yeah.
You know, and make sure the kids are up and getting them ready and making sure they're fed. You know, and it's about trying to find that balance, and it's so difficult. You know, I think I don't know if I can speak. I don't know if you can relate, but it can be so difficult. You know, trying to find that time, especially if your child's having an off day.
Yep.
You know, it can be so hard. You know, and you just have to do what you can.
Yeah, and I think it's that way where it can just take. You can be having a great week, and it can just be one thing, whether it's work or something at home or something with your kid, and it just totally sets off your full week. That you do just go into total autopilot mode because you need to. It's that whole. Essentially kind of that whole fight or flight thing, because you're having to really just switch into just kind of super dad mode to be like, I just need to get everything by. I can't think of myself, and then it gets to the end of the week and your head's just full of just everything you've not spoke about, and it's that way where you do just need to offload. And I think sometimes it can be difficult to want to then offload to your partner, because, you know, they're going through exactly the same thing, and it might be a case of they don't have the capacity to listen to that either. So
absolutely,
it's that way where you've got that welcoming space. And whether it is just sticking a message into the chat or jumping onto one of the calls that we'll have, and everyone can relate to you. So it's definitely something that I'd recommend if anyone out there is feeling lonely, feeling anxious or anything at all, and they think they can relate to that, then definitely drop us a message. We can
even if
get
you know it's one of those that even if maybe you know somebody close that has a child with ASN, it doesn't it doesn't have to be just yourself. You know, by all means, you know, we certainly won't turn anybody away.
No.
You know, I think anybody that we can help, you know, no matter what, that's a goal.
I will definitely do so.
You know, it's going to make their lives better. It's going to make the kids' lives better.
Yeah.
And we can build a good community, and we can build, we can build the best world for our children. That's, you know, I think certainly something we've talked about before is, you know, preparing our children for a world at the moment that's not fully prepared for them. You know, and I know certainly, like you said, I haven't had the opportunity to actually receive a diagnosis.
Yep.
So your input is fascinating to me because I've never had that yet. It may come with my youngest, however, it's not happened for me yet. So when I met our oldest, he already had his diagnosis, and I know when I spoke to my partner about it, she was very much the same. She was very much in the denial process of, you know, there's no way that this could be happening. And it was actually a little bit different because, you know, his actions, he was starting to do things. He's, you know, the pica was starting to show. You know, he was starting to eat things that he wasn't meant to eat. He was starting to chew things in the house, all of these types of things. And, you know, from about when he was born up until about 1.5, he was actually meeting all of his milestones, kind of like what you were saying about Ashton.
Yep.
You know, and I think after that he regressed quite significantly.
Which is that's
you
the,
know,
that's
and
the hardest part, and you get a glimpse of what your child can be.
And I haven't seen that. You know, it's certainly something that's completely new to me, and I haven't experienced it yet. So I do find this fascinating because it may come with my youngest. You know, so I find that quite fascinating. Again, this is what we're talking about, where we're sharing different experiences. You know, there's certain experiences that I have that you don't, and you have experiences that I don't, and we can pull all this together, and that's certainly the goal that we're trying to do.
Definitely, and obviously it's myself and Sam that's on it tonight, but there is a group of dads out there, or anyone else that's looking to come onto the podcast, share whether you want to go into a chat, share any advice, you're just wanting to get anything off your chest. Like, we're looking to essentially make a big kind of knowledge base. So if you come to it and maybe you are in kind of Sam's situation where his youngest is going to go through a diagnosis and you're not sure what to expect, then it could be a case of listen to some of these podcasts, get on the groups, come on and have a chat, tell us how you feel, because it could be a case of you're going through exactly the same thing as someone else, or something that someone else has just went through, and they're quite happy to help you. I know I'm always happy to talk about any experiences that I've went through, so anyone at all, don't hesitate. As I say, there's multiple different chats. You're not expected 100%. To come in and chat every single day. You can be there and just watch. You don't have to be including at all.
You may just want to tune in for events, for example. I know events, a lot of dads, you know, they have so much going on where if they see an event, they're up for it. Or you might get dads that like to chat about general things. I know, you know, football is a discussion. We have lots of, you know, what TV, our child
movies,
movies, what our child's got up to, maybe. You know, something. I know we refer to it a lot as small victories. Half the time it can be, you know, wow, my son or my daughter done this today, and you know, it's a step in the right direction. And sharing that with a group of people, especially who, you know, are in a very similar situation, it's so gratifying, you know. And I think I certainly see it sometimes when, you know, somebody said something in the chat of, oh, my son done this or my daughter done this today, and I'm like, oh, it just gives you a little bit of, like, it just gives you a little boost, you know. And I think that's wonderful. And I think as dads especially, I think we go into overdrive, you know. We plan everything. You know, we've planned this podcast so much. You know, and I think we were worried about how we were going to be. And
I think it's a perfect analogy of how it's went. I'm sitting all day planning things, different topics and different talking points, for it then to go from 3 speakers to 2. I think it's just exactly how our lives are.
That's parenting, isn't it? You know, And you know, there's nothing worse when your child is not well. I know when my oldest, when he's not well, you know about it, because everything is agony. You know, a stuffed up nose can be crying relentlessly for hours. You know, little things like that.
I think it's a lot of the time as well that even with, obviously we're not getting into the diagnosing illnesses chat, but it can be the smallest thing. It can be a blocked nose. I know for Ashton, if he's got a cough or anything, they obviously don't really understand what's happening to their body. So
absolutely,
half the time with Ashton, we can usually tell if he starts to have a lot more meltdowns, or if his behaviour changes quite drastically. We can tell usually there's something happening, whether it's he's got a sore stomach, or like something, there could be a sore throat. It's anything at that point, especially with a child with kind of limited communication in terms of kind of.
And it's taken you a long time to understand these certain cues.
Exactly.
You know, and I think it really ties in like what you were saying. Obviously, since you've had this diagnosis, you know, as a dad, you've had to learn very much from the ground up.
Yeah, it's like a full degree you have to get pretty much in your own kids, because there's not. I mean, you go through like a kind of full pregnancy, or trying for kids and having this idea of, I'm going to do this with my son, or I'm going to take my daughter to this and everything, and then obviously you get these diagnoses and everything's kind of
thrown out the window.
Yeah, it's out the window. It's not a case of, it's not the kind of easy route in terms of this is how you deal with your kid, this is what they're supposed to. It's all different, and it's again the whole thing of having autistic kids or kids with additional needs. They're all completely different, so it's not as if you can even go online and say, how do I deal with this, because 9 times out of 10 it's totally different.
Oh yeah, you'll get Google searches about you know, a study that's been done on you know, neurotypical children, or maybe a certain group of children who are completely different from ours. There is, just like with parenting, there is no answer. You know, there is no instruction manual as to how we do this. Every day is a challenge. Every day is, and I think that it certainly makes it exciting.
Yeah,
you know,
it's never boring, anyway. It's definitely a lot of trial and lots of
for sure. And I know certainly you were talking about the diagnosis, and that must have changed your perspective on, you know, Ashton, how he's going to progress.
Yeah,
and that must be so difficult. Like I haven't, like I said, I haven't been through it, so I don't know if I'm going to feel similar when my youngest, if my youngest goes through that. We do think there's a large chance of it happening. However, I'm not gonna say.
I think it's that even if you go into these things expecting, I'm going to get a diagnosis, I'm going to get it, but as soon as it's different, you don't know how to react when you say, okay, here's a diagnosis, because you have no idea. I mean, for me, I say Ashton was diagnosed autistic when he was 3, and it did take a while to even understand kind of what that meant, and how to really work with Ashton and let him kind of be as best as he can be. I mean, Ashton went through various different stages where I think it was more a case of we had to understand him. We had to go through a huge learning curve to work out and really get your head around that things don't have to, Ashton doesn't have to adapt to different things in the world. Like, you need to make the world adapt to him. He is the focus, and I think as soon as we switched that, it did change things massively. I mean the difference with Ashton's diagnosis is we got, as I say, the autism diagnosis when he turned 3, but when he was 4, he went through genetic testing, which is something that's kind of optional as part of the autism diagnosis, and it came back that Ashton has something called Fragile X syndrome, which is something that I had never heard of, and most people I talked to had ever heard of.
Can you elaborate on that? I haven't personally, I haven't heard of that, and anybody that I have, I know. So
yeah, definitely. As again, I say, it's nothing that I had ever heard of, but what Fragile X is, and again, this is not specific 100% medical chat here, it's just
that's
basically what I can try and kind of articulate. But basically what Fragile X is a genetic condition that's caused by mutation in a gene that's called FMR1 on the X chromosome. So with this being an X chromosome related condition, it affects the males a lot more than the females, because the females have their extra X to kind of coincide that there, whereas the males only have the one X. Now, full mutation of this particular gene, it causes it to turn off completely, and that stops the production of a particular protein which is needed for brain development. what that does is it causes intellectual disability. It can cause various different physical features for them as well, and it can also cause things like autism and ADHD. So with Ashton, the Fragile X syndrome is his main diagnosis, and then he's also got autism, he's got ADHD. I mean, for us it was a huge shock, because
I can imagine,
I mean, it got to the point where I hadn't thought of anything going to come out of this testing, and my nieces went through the same testing, nothing came out of it, so I hadn't even had a thought. I was like, we'll do it, if anything it's going to be positive to give us a bit more of an idea. I had no idea it was going to come out as Fragile X syndrome, and with that it was a huge learning. I mean, I can remember when I even got the phone call from my wife. I was just about to go into the cinema, and I was sitting there and I was like, Fragile X syndrome, what's that? I'm sitting there waiting for the film to start, and I'm just kind of on Wikipedia looking it up, and then I just started kind of bursting into tears reading through how it's going to be, he's going to need kind of lifelong support, all these sort of things. And it's the sort of stuff that when Ashton had his autism diagnosis, I always had it in my head of which way are things going to go. Is he going to be able to support himself, or is he going to need full-time support? I was always get frustrated that you just wish you could look into the future and see how it's going to go.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas now I'd give in to have that uncertainty again, almost. So yeah, it's been a huge learning journey. And the other kind of flip side to Fragile X syndrome is it's something that's inherited. So what this has meant is that we found that it was passed down through my wife, which meant that she also has a kind of version of Fragile X syndrome, which is
but she's got the extra.
Yeah, so she's got the extra one, but she doesn't have the full mutation. I won't get into full details of it, but essentially means that she's got some difficulties as well, and it's meant a lot more looking into the family and things can support. But in terms of Fragile X syndrome, there's not a huge community out there for that. I mean, we do have a group, which is great in Scotland, to connect to other parents and have that chat similar to like we've got the Dad's Chat. It's just good again to speak to anyone, because there is a lot of information online about things like Fragile X syndrome, but I find it a lot better and kind of more personal where you can speak to people that went through the experience. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that gives you a whistle-stop
thank
tour
you
of
thank you for sharing
Fragile
that.
X syndrome. I mean,
I can't imagine that's an easy thing to talk about.
I think it was just it was almost like the double diagnosis of just, you kind of get your head around of, okay, he's autistic, we're kind of going through that now, we understand things, and then it's almost, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Fragile X diagnosis, it was hard to go through, but then reading through it just explained Ashton to a T about things like great sense of humour. Ashton's an amazing boy, he's always laughing, like he's a complete mimic. Everything he does, depending who he's been speaking to, you'll hear different accents. A lot of the time it's things like Miss Rachel's accent, or it's different things, like it's helped him.
It's like almost like an Americanized accent.
Exactly.
My stepdaughter, she's like that. She constantly refers to money as dollars. She watches a lot of American YouTubers.
So influenced.
So I do understand that certain aspect.
And I don't know about you, but I've found a lot of time with Ashton that a lot of his speech and a lot of the things that he's learned has came from different things, like whether it's YouTube or watching certain videos, and he's learned and then kind of understood the context around it in that way. But it does mean that our house just has a mixture of different accents and different things that he wants to do, playing with specific toys. So yeah, I mean, he's a brilliant little guy in terms of his personality, but it does come with its difficulties. But I think, if anything, it was a difficult diagnosis to take, but it is who Ashton is. It sums him up very well.
I think there's something that I would say, and let's say I'm obviously very much neutral in this, but certainly from what you're saying, something that strikes me is that you've adapted, you've learned, a lot of times what dads do is they plan. What we were saying before, I remember when I started to really understand my oldest, I understood that he had autism. We thought at the time he had ADHD, but it actually turns out that the ADHD that we thought it was is actually a learning disability. It just presents very similar. But he obviously also has Pica. And like you said, it was that kind of doubling down of, it's not just, and it sounds bad to say, you don't turn around and go, it's not just autism. I think you look at it and you go, well, right, this means that, your child is in quite a peculiar, a percentage out there. I know that, you know, our oldest, he's going through an assessment at the moment for his learning disability to see where he is. And he at the moment is looking, I believe there's 4 different categories. I believe he's between like the second last and last category, which we kind of already knew, but at the same time it doesn't make it feel any better. I think we always imagined that one day he would be able to live independently. It's now looking that he's probably going to need assisted living one day.
Which is difficult to
hear. It's trying to wrap your head around it.
It's even if it's you that came to that kind of assessment, it's still difficult for you to think, because everyone's obviously got that thing in their head of you raise your kids and then your kids raise you.
Yeah, I think I was brought up in quite an old family, so I think I had very old school thoughts when it came to children. So I know something that when I first met the kids and I was properly looking after them, was, you know, they would have dinner, and if they didn't finish the dinner, they would still ask me for treats, and I'd be like, well, no, you've not finished your dinner yet.
Yep.
And I remember my partner turned around and went, no,
that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. No, it's not how it works. Yeah, we don't do that here. But I remember that threw me for a loop, and then understanding the process of, listen, this is the food they are eating until their body tells them. Yep. You know, and that was fascinating to me. So learning all about these, you know, different conditions and all of that sort of stuff, whilst, you know, understand, like, we can't have certain toys in the house because our oldest will rip them apart. And, you know, something that's notorious that you see in lots of shops is like sensory toys with foam in them. Yep. So our oldest, he will gladly rip them apart and eat the foam inside, out of the middle.
All the gel balls and everything.
Yes,
sort of
we changed his. Which I remember he came home from school once, and I went to change his nappy, and it honestly looked like it was like fish eggs. And I remember being like, right, either this child is an alien, or he has eaten something that I have no idea what it could possibly be. We phoned up the school and we found out it was Orbeez.
Lovely.
He had, and this just goes to show, our children with autism are incredibly intelligent. Yeah. And I think that's quite a misconception sometimes, as people look at it and they go, right, well, they can't do certain basic things, therefore they don't have a lot of capacity.
No.
They
know what's going on. Yeah, they can get to it if they want something.
Yeah. One time in school, he noticed at the corner of his eye that it was a 2-handled prong door, and one of the handles actually didn't have to be open for the door to open. Right. Okay. But every staff member still mimicked it. Yep. And one time, out of like the 2 years he was there, the one time the staff member pulled that, opened it, and didn't have the hand fully touching the bar, he clocked it, opened the door, went into the classroom, ate a bunch of all these toys. So I you know, and I think at the time you think about it and you go, oh good lord. Yeah. But now I'm like, honestly, that's phenomenal. Yeah. You know, and it's just, I would give anything to step into their brains for a day and see how they live life. You know, and I think sometimes you know, ASN, certainly, you know, there's so many additional support needs. We were talking about it before. There's physical needs. Yep. There's you know, there's so many different needs out there, and there's not enough resources. You know, there's not enough out there for these children, and it's awful. You know, I know families who are going through allocations at the minute, and that can be really difficult. You know, and that's where it's good that we have this support. You know, I certainly know that when my youngest, when he goes through the allocations, if we don't get the right place for him, I'll find that very difficult. Yeah. You know, because you know what your child deserves, and trying to make sure they get that. You know, every day can be a fight. You know,
you want to make it as easy as possible, especially when it comes to things like school. And I think in terms of services or places to go, it's very difficult, because even where there is these services, or where there is places to go, it's not very easy to find them. I think it's something that we'll probably talk a bit further down the line in terms of places that we can that we would personally recommend, or things that we have found useful. I think it is definitely a huge topic that we
if anybody knows about any, please recommend them. Exactly, we are open to all ideas.
Definitely, because it's usually a bit of a needle in a haystack trying to find somewhere that the ASN kids can go. So definitely shout if you can hear anything. But yeah, I think it's that way of just when you were saying about your oldest, when you had obviously the learning delay and the autism and the pica, it's that way. It almost feels like as soon as you get all these different diagnoses, you're kind of, a community in your world just shrinks that bit smaller to be like, I've got less people to relate to. And that's certainly how it felt with the kind of Fragile X syndrome for us.
Imagine,
like, there's no one else we know with this, and it was great until we ended up reaching out to somewhere called the Fragile X Society, and they were absolutely brilliant, put us in touch with a local group, and it meant we were able to get in touch with different parents that went through various different stages of the journey. And again, it's as soon as you find your people, it just makes things a lot more relaxing to understand that you're not going through it alone. And I think that's the main message we want to get out for everyone, that you don't want to be going through this alone. Whether you want to come, join any of the chats, don't be in the chats, come in the days out, or even just listen to this podcast. If you don't want anything involved with it, just have a listen.
You can you can join the chat. I know a lot of people that join the chat, send the occasional message. I know I'm in a position where at the moment I'm a stay-at-home dad. You know, you would think that would mean I would have a lot of time to contribute to the chat. However, with 3 children, well, most of the time it's 3, if not 2. One of them goes to school. You're flying around the house trying to get everything done.
Definitely. We even seen the other day when we were having a chat about this podcast, and you had your youngest involved in most of the call to
yes
help.
Yes, we were on our call discussing things that we can talk about, things that we can share. And my youngest came over. He was very interested. His language has definitely picked up as of late, which is obviously a wonderful thing. You know, and he is doing well. He's moved up into the 3 to 5 room in nursery, and he seems to be doing quite well. I think nursery is his kingdom. You know, everybody knows that my youngest, he beats to his own drum. You know, he just doesn't care, and it's hilarious because, you know, he'll go outside into the pouring rain. He'll do, you know, he'll lie and he'll do like star shapes and puddles. You know, it doesn't matter how many clothes he goes through. He just doesn't care.
It's like it doesn't have to make sense.
He falls asleep on.
It makes sense to him. Then
he falls asleep under the sand tray, and you know, he's happy. You know, and you know, it's one of those that you wouldn't change them for the world. You know, and we were talking about this earlier. There's so much that, you know, I think we would change out in the world, and we would make things more accessible. We would try and reach out to, you know, like right at the core of a diagnosis, we would want these services spread out far and wide. You know, we want you to feel like you're part of a community straight off the bat, and you're not navigating things solo, or, you know, with your partner or whatever your situation is. You know, so yeah, I think for us, we just want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as we can. You know, and like we've talked about already, we've got so many different stories. You know, our lives are completely different, but yet we have this common ground. You know, and I think that in itself is something that's really useful.
Definitely, no judgment or anything there at all.
Absolutely.
It's because I think different people handle things in different ways, but I think, again, kind of jumping back to that diagnosis, like for me, I just wanted as much information as I could. Tell me everything about it. You want some sort of answer. How can I help? How can I do that? And it only takes you so far. So then you start listening to every podcast you can find online, everything you can read, and then even from there again, it's kind of jumping back to that a lot of the time when I was listening to these things, there was nothing that was specific to Scotland. That
it's all quite generalised, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite generalised, or it's to do with different pathways, or it can be a lot of things that talk about a lot of medications and stuff, whereas there's nothing that I could find online, certainly, that was specific to Scotland. That's why I thought it was a huge gap. And while obviously we're saying this is mainly Scotland specific content, we would be happy to reach out to any dads all over the world. Anyone that's feeling alone or just looking to have that chat, then anyone is welcome to this. So I say don't hesitate to reach out to us.
I think it's so important, you know, no matter who you are, you know, no matter who you are, what you look like, where you live, you know, I think everybody who has a child with additional support need has that same level of, you know, stress. I'll say stress. You know, you have that it's almost like you have really high expectations that you need to sit and achieve this, and you need to make sure that you know everything for your child when in reality they don't know everything for themselves.
You're their biggest advocate. You're the one who has to fight for everything.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult, and it's difficult to kind of avoid that. I mean, you can be sitting there, you could do something yourself for the day, and then you automatically feel that guilt. Should I be doing more for my son? Should I be looking this thing up? Should I be doing this? Should I be helping them with this? And I think it's natural to feel a certain amount of guilt, but it's also difficult to just switch off. And I think from what you said earlier on, that it's massive. You need to switch off. You need to take some you time, because otherwise you're not going to be the best person you can be for your kids.
Oh, for sure. And I know I made the New Year's resolution this year that I was going to be consistent, and I was going to go to the gym. I was going to food prep. I was going to do all these things. I'm on a weight loss journey at the moment. I've lost about 3.5 stone, so it is going well. Thank you. You know, and it's one of those that, I'll be honest, I don't go to the gym right now. I've, you know, so many things have happened at home, you know, where, you know, my oldest, he's become more of a full-time responsibility.
Yeah.
All of these things, and you do kind of sit there and beat yourself up. You turn around and go, I should be doing more. You know, I should wake up with all this energy, or I should, you know, and then you have to have those moments where you sit back and go, well, let's think about this logically.
Yeah.
You know, I'm only maxing about 4 hours sleep a night. You know, I'm up for 20 hours. There's times where, you know, if my oldest is, you know, he's a flight risk, so he honestly he gives he could give Houdini a run for his money. Honestly, he's unbelievable at it. You know, I wish it's one of those things I wish he wasn't unbelievable at it, but you know,
there's things like that where they do things that make things difficult for you, but then at the same time you're kind of like, kind of impressed at the same time.
Honestly, yeah, like there's so many times I'm sitting there and it'll be something completely new. Like I know a month ago our oldest, he actually absconded from the house, and it was an absolute nightmare. Woke up in the middle of the night, police coming to the door, letting us know what happened. He'd been out for hours in just his nappy, and it was traumatizing, but you know, it was one of those that they were actually explaining the situation of everything that he'd done. Yeah. And I was sitting there going, I don't know whether I want to applaud or I want to cry. Yeah. You know, it was just one of those that it took, I think it was 20 odd police officers and nearly half the fleet to chase this kid down.
It's just,
and I'm like, honestly, I don't know whether I should be impressed or not. Like, I watched Cops when I was a kid, and you would see all these chases, and I was like, oh, he's got to get caught eventually. And then apparently my oldest, he outran 20 of them. I'm like, all right.
That's one of the qualities you need to try tap into and figure out the way you can twist that into some sort
honestly, it's unbelievable. You know,
and that must be quite difficult though, in terms of, obviously, I think relieved when you got him back, but it must be quite a fright and things.
It's, you know, I think when I seen him, because you heard him, he was quite distressed when he got out the police car, and then he came in the front door, and I think my instant reaction was I didn't know whether I wanted to hug him or I wanted to just grab him and be like, why did you do that? Yeah. You know, but he doesn't have that understanding, and that's something that, you know, I think you have to almost take a step back. Like in the moment, you have to sit there and go, why did you do that? But he doesn't have that understanding. You know, he just seen it as, I went for a jaunt outside. Yep. You know, he didn't know the risks. So where we live at the moment, there's the second fastest river in Scotland is in front, just in front of our house. To the behind us is train tracks and the motorway, and then to the right where he went along, he went through the next kind of town over onto the dual carriageway, pitch black at night, where it's a 60-mile-an-hour road. Honestly, he came home without a scratch on him, and I'm like, there's got to be somebody out there that was looking after him, because it's a miracle in itself that nothing happened, you know. But and it's definitely something that affects us. You know, I think I the way I am as a dad, I try and put a bit of humour onto it, because I think if I sit and think about it, you know, with how I am, I can really overthink it and get myself into a dark place with it. Yeah. You know, So I think both me and my partner, we're dealing with it in very different ways.
Yeah.
You know, and we're doing you know, it's definitely gave the relevant authorities, you know, a kick up the backside.
Yep.
Let's be honest
Uh-huh.
about what needs done now, and we're hopefully getting on the right track to getting him the support that he needs.
Good.
You know, which is obviously what we're hoping for.
Yeah, and I think it's that we just gone back to your saying about how obviously you and your partner are dealing with it in different ways. I think that's obviously a massive part of things, because it's what you always kind of hope is that when one of you are feeling down, you've got the other one there that can kind of pick you up, sort of thing. Because it's massive, and it's a difficult life to be in. It's that way you do need to kind of rely on each other for support. It's when it gets to those points where you're both very low, and it's difficult, and just that's why the whole kind of self-care is massive. Just having those days out and just be able to reload, because you know you're going to have a difficult week. If you're able to go out and have a night with the dads, or a day with the dads, or anything that you can just switch off from having to be that ultra vigilant dad for a couple of hours, then I think the benefit you see is huge. I mean, for me personally anyway.
No, I totally agree. I'm the same. You know, I think my partner's been really good in that sense. We kind of work it out. My partner has a lot of health conditions as well, so we try, you know, it's one of those that I am happy to take on a bit more.
Yep.
You know, I do the majority of the night shift with our oldest. He can get out of his room kind of anytime he wants, so one of us kind of needs to keep an eye. He likes to raid the kitchen, etc, etc. It can be an absolute nightmare, but at the same time I don't think I would go to sleep knowing that he was still awake. I like to be, I don't know if this is just a quality that I have, but I like to be the last one up.
Yep.
Because I feel like everybody's in the room, everybody's sleeping, everybody's safe.
Yeah.
Now I can rest.
Off, yep.
You know, and so
they're tiring as well, but
yeah.
I mean, but again at the same time,
I don't think I would be able to sleep otherwise.
Exactly, it's that balance.
And I think that's something that you know, there's things that I do more of, and there's things that my partner does more of, and we kind of equate it. Like every Friday, I have after dinner, I normally go into our room and I'll play my games for, you know, 3 or 4 hours, and that's my time.
Good.
You know, that's my time to go and tune out. You know, I love gaming.
Yep.
I love sports. I play football every Sunday.
Another thing we're trying to arrange that's taking about 4 months.
Yes.
So hopefully at some point.
I think that everybody's schedule's changing. I think that's what's been going on. But it's one of those that the more people we bring in, the more people we can get in the moment, and we can kind of make it. We can then turn it into, you know, a consistent activity,
more regular thing. Yeah. Ideally, any sort of ASN dads with good organisational skills. That's what we're looking for.
Any ASN dad, full stop, will take you. Absolutely. Listen, you know, I say it all the time. Like I say to my partner all the time. Like I'm a big nerd. I love all things that are like geeky. I like Marvel. I like, you know, gaming. I like football. All of these types of things. And I was welcomed with open arms in this chat. So if I am settled in this group, if I settled well into this group, then anybody can.
Well, that's it. I remember just going back to the gaming thing, that I would barely ever do any sort of gaming. But I remember when Ashton was first born, every once in a while I'd be like, right, I'll get the PlayStation out, turn it on. I'll get an hour here, I'll get it turned on, straight away turn it on, 26-hour update. God. So then it got to the point where this has to go in the bin. I don't have the choice for this. So that was when the gaming ended then.
Yeah, to be fair, I grew up with like the PlayStation all the way up, and then I stopped for a while. Just I would play games that would agitate me, and it became unhealthy, so I gave it up. But then I remember I was sitting with my partner, and she was like, "Listen, the way things are at the moment, you're always home.
Yep.
So you're not having that social activity or social, you know, you're not being able to be social,
hobby or something."
So she was like, "Listen, I know that you gamed in the past, but I know now that you can game, tune out, go help the kids, come back." You know, so I play on the Nintendo Switch. That's my vice at the moment.
Nice.
Nintendo Switch, and then we've got an Xbox, but I mainly will use that for watching Netflix or Disney Plus or something fun.
That's the thing. Gaming is not something we've looked at, but I mean, we could potentially add something in for that. So I'm sure there's more dads that play these games. I mean, I probably wouldn't do it because I'm absolutely shocking at it, and I don't want to highlight how bad I am at it. But I'm sure definitely with all the dads that are in there, I'm sure they would love to have some sort of gaming, because as I say, you've got that for chats as well, so it's definitely something that we can
Oh yeah,
we can
everybody.
look
I
at.
think we've all got such different life experience. We've got such different interests.
Yep.
And I think that's what makes everybody unique.
Yeah,
You know,
nothing's off the table for these
No,
meetups.
absolutely
Like
not.
anything that anyone wants to suggest, so we're looking to set up.
everybody
regular...
hints at me to go back into karaoke, and I'm like, I'm staying away from that.
Exactly. That's karaoke Sam. You've managed to get a name for yourself. So
Oh.
any new dads, you can get yourself a name.
Yeah.
Because it can be anything. We're looking to start regular kind of curry clubs, like going to different quizzes and things. Just
Quiz night would
anything
be
at all.
brilliant.
Exactly, something that we can. Another
My-
thing we
my
can try
use-
and
my
embarrass
useless
ourselves.
knowledge.
Yeah, need some sort of ASN specific round, and that's it.
Yeah.
And we can kind of highlight our skill in that area. But yeah, definitely anything at all you can think of, or even if anyone wants to reach out, if you've got a question, we're honestly here.
Yeah, we're happy to answer. If not one of us is free, somebody else will be. That's kind of the go-to in the chat. You know, there's 50 dads in there. All it takes is maybe one or two to give you an instant response and give you some really good pointers
Yeah.
in the moment. And then as the day progresses, dads will tune in at different moments and provide their input.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember when obviously my son, my stepson, he did, when that event all happened, I remember I posted it in the chat because I was like, I need to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
And dads were coming through at different points of the day going, listen, you know, this isn't your fault. You know, these things happen. You know, hopefully that this has happened. We can now start getting things done. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think in the moment, not because sometimes you want to hear things from other people that aren't your partner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
With the greatest respect, because you know that they are going to tell you what you want to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just want it from not so much a stranger, but you want it from somebody that doesn't fully know you but understands the situation you're in.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's where the honesty there, because there is certain things people have said, and we're not always just going to say, yo, you're 100% right. If there's any sort of feedback there, then we're going to tell you. We're going to say, have you tried this? Have you tried that? How did this happen? Sort of thing. So yeah, definitely, you're not just going to get kind of pandered to, which is obviously good, because you know that there is obviously people actually looking out for you as well, and it's that way as well. As I remember, even after it obviously happened with your stepson, it was obviously for even times after that, people are still asking, is everything okay, all these sort of things. So I think it is that way. We are such a kind of close community. People are looking out for each other, and it's
it'll
been
be simple
massive for me,
things.
yeah.
Like, I know that some of the recent talks obviously been, somebody was looking at a new car and there was advice going in about what cars are good. You know, I think we have a mobility car, so ours goes through kind of every 3 years. We get a new one, etc. So I couldn't really contribute too much to that, but lots of dads were coming forward with really good advice. You know, and I think it certainly gave me something to consider. Like, I might have a look at this. Definitely. The next time, you know, our car comes up for a new one. So
there's so
much information, there's so much knowledge, and you know, we're trying to create a community that, you know, where there's no judgment. Everybody, you're not alone. We've said that. You know, you are not alone. You know, whether you need help right off the bat or whether you just want to feel a part of a community,
or you just want to be
it's at your discretion.
You want to be away from the whole. You want to come into the chat. People that get it, but you don't want to talk about ASN stuff. Totally fine. Like, it doesn't have to be that.
Absolutely.
I mean, going forward, we're hoping to use this to try and give as much advice as possible, whether it's talking about help with going on holidays, travelling, it could be things about different places to go, navigating different services.
It's like kind of a deeper dive into the life of an ASN dad.
Yep.
You know, I think, like you were saying, like planning on going to places where, you know, good, lots of good places to go. You know, lots of resources to use.
Yeah.
You know, there's like lots of different things that we can contribute.
Yeah, we'll do anything we can to help each other, and it's that way we're all learning still. We still get a lot out of it. But yeah, I mean, I guess just to wrap up, we're glad you're here. We're glad you're listening to us. Hopefully, you can kind of continue in this journey. Again, you're not alone. And yeah, we will catch up with you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you want to get involved or get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram under ASN Dad Chat.